You're listening to the Coloring Book Creator Podcast, episode 42. And in this episode, I'm sharing the audio from a live weekly coaching session I host inside the Coloring Book Creator Club Facebook group. Now, if you would like to watch the video iteration of this session, and you should because I share tons of visual examples, then head over to the Facebook group. The link to this specific episode is available in the show notes. But if you're driving or out for a walk or otherwise multitasking, then go ahead and listen to this episode and then catch the video when you have some time. What you're listening to today is a part of a two-part series. In part one, I discuss book covers and how they can either help or hurt your sales. Now, in part two, following this episode, I'm going to deep dive into discussing the back cover of your book. And while this episode is focused on the front cover, in part two, I'll also be deep diving into reviewing sales pages on Amazon that I believe are doing a really killer job in maximizing all of the resources that Amazon gives us as print-on-demand publishers, including taking advantage of the highly underused resource called A-plus content, which I speak about briefly in this episode you're about to listen to. But I'll go into that into much depth in part two, so stay tuned for that coming soon. Alrighty, so with that said, sit back, relax, and prepare to take some notes. And again, to see the video iteration of this podcast episode, head over to my Facebook group. The link is also in the show notes. Enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Rodney Washington, and I am the creator of the Coloring Book Creator Club, where we meet every Tuesday. I pick a topic that I feel would be of benefit and interest to you in regards to your coloring book creator business, or if you're doing a planner or a journal or some other type of book. All of this, it's all books, it's all publishing, it's all love. So if any of those interest you and you're able to tune in. I had a couple of people express interest in wanting to know more about book covers. And book covers are, obviously very important because we're selling our books online most of the time. And so again, if you are selling your book online, let's say on a platform like Amazon, where your potential customer is not directly in your presence, they don't get the experience of you in order for them to connect with you that then moves them into potentially wanting to buy the book. The main thing that they have to go by if they're online, whether it's on Amazon or your website or wherever else, is they're having to go by what they see and what they read. And obviously, the first thing that they are going to pay attention to is the cover, what the cover looks like. There's a saying that I've had for years is that what something looks like will get my attention. What happens as I continue reading it, or if I'm talking to the person, if it's an in-person conversation, will determine whether or not I keep it. So you keep it. So the cover really is very important, and it's something that we can't gloss over because, again, we have a lot of competition. Now, I will say this. What initially inspired this conversation in particular is that I'm in another Facebook group, which I won't mention the name of, but there was a post in the group by someone who had published a set of, I think, journals they were. And to keep it just really very simple, the covers were actually not interesting at all. And the individual was in the Facebook group asking for support around what could be done to spur on sales, to get more sales for the book. And basically, the first thing that everyone that commented on the post said is your covers are not basically doing you any favors. There's nothing about the covers that would make someone, if they saw this again on Amazon, for an example, would make them actually want to buy the book. There was just nothing interesting about them. So anyway, that was the initial idea that sort of inspired this conversation. So what I decided to do was to put together, I'm going to do some cover reviews. What the cover reviews I'm going to do are covers of books that I found on Amazon. I'm going to share several covers with you, and I'm going to share some other things that I feel would be extremely valuable in you understanding as you watch the replay of this, why this is important. I'm going to show it to you for several reasons. One, is that research is very important. So I'm going to also emphasize that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some books that I pulled from Amazon. I'm going to pull those actual listings up. I'm going to look at them and discuss them. And then I'm going to kind of go through the breakdown of what I'd like to say to you, whether you're with me live or watching the replay, is notice the things that I point out, but notice the things that you will find across, even before I say anything, notice the things that you are going to find consistency amongst these books that I pulled. And what I'll do is I'll go through the books, I'll show you why I feel like this book cover works, and then I'll go over the rest of this list here and why this part here, which is getting crystal clear on your customer, is so important before you design your book cover, why the cover needs to grab attention in search results, some ways to start collecting what I call swipe files. These are things that you can start collecting in order to be able to, as you find book covers that inspire you, that you like, there's a way to grab screenshots of those covers so you can have those available and accessible to you if you decide to hire a designer to do the cover for you. And some other things and some additional resources I'm going to share with you at the end. So let's get right into it. I'm going to X out of this screen and I'm going to go over here to this document that I created, and I'll share the screen again. And then I'm just going to click on some links here. So let me go over to the top of this document. And I'm just wanting to make sure that it is showing. Okay, there we go. All right. So I'm going to click on these links and I'm going to go right into it. So these links are all to books I found on Amazon. And I'm just going to go over them kind of quickly. And then I'm going to discuss some things about them. So the first thing, I'm just looking at the dual screen here to make sure that it's popping up. Okay. So this is one of the covers that I pulled up. Again, it seems very simple, and I feel it is, but I want, as I'm showing you these covers, I want you to take note of all of this in its totality, not just the artwork in and of itself. I want you to make note of the title of the book as it relates to the cover. I'm gonna actually make the cover bigger screen a little bit here, so you're focusing more on that. So make note of the title of the book, make note of the graphics of the book. And one of the things that I would, and even the subtitle here at the bottom. So the title of this book is called Don't Worry, Be Happy, Coloring Book Treasury. The subtitle down here is Color Your Way to a Calm, Positive Mood. All right. As I'm talking about these covers, I want you to think in terms of what is the title, and what is does the artwork complement the title? And if you saw this on a search result, would this draw your eye in? Now, of course, you're looking at it by itself, not in conjunction with a lot of other options. But anyway, I want to point that out because I feel like that this is really important for you to start noticing as you're doing your research, which is very important. Notice what you like about it and what you maybe don't like about it. Maybe you don't like the font choice. Maybe the colors or the design or the artwork is too cartoonish or too kiddish for you. I'm not saying look at it from the place of criticizing it, but look at what works for you and what doesn't. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually close some tabs here because I've got too many tabs open and I don't want things pinging while we're talking. All righty. So I'm going to go back to my list. And actually, if you would like a copy of this list, let me know and I will get you a copy of it. All right. Now, this is another book. This is called Inspirational Positive Affirmations. It's a coloring book for adults. If you blow up the screen a little bigger, it says 30 beautiful women from diverse cultures with 30 pages of motivational quotes to ignite the spirit. Okay, so it's very clear who this book is for. The colors, again, will pull your eye in. The women here at the bottom of all different ethnicities tie into the title of the book. And again, if you're a person searching for a book like this, or if this is again, this book is written, or I'm sorry, is created for a specific audience, a specific ideal audience. So this person here clearly has done her research or his research on who this book is for. All righty. So the background pattern in the back and all of the motif in the back is kind of it's a little bit of mandala style. It definitely has an ethnic feel to it, and and the colors, the choice of the font, it's easy to read for the most part. After the bottom part down here where it says 30 beautiful women, that's a little tight. I probably would use a clearer font, a more solid font, not with too many curves. But overall, I think that this person did a really great job on this cover of this book. Okay, so I'm going to kind of move through these quickly. I'm going to go to the next one. And if any of this that you're seeing, if you have any comments about it, like I said, leave it to me in the Facebook group. Like I said, I'm not bringing anyone on Zoom. I'm just going to do it through Facebook. So bring any comments that you have for me in here. Okay. This book is called Express Yourself Mindfulness Coloring Book. Now, again, when you're looking at covers, for a lot of the books that I'll show you, the colors are going to be pretty much bright and very vivid. But this person here specifically is designing a book that is more for a person that is, I guess the word I'm kind of come up with right now is more Zen. That's the feeling that I get. So mindfulness, meditation, that kind of thing. So the graphic in this, and this to me works because it feels a little expensive, a little luxurious in a sense. But again, it's got a very Zen feel. There is a clear pattern in the background behind the image, but it's subtle. It's not overbearing. And it actually, the pattern in the background here actually pulls the eye into her. So there's a strong color here that almost feels gold, and that's what makes it look expensive. And again, the font is easy to read. So this is another point I want to make sure I point out. When you're doing fonts, if you're going to do something more, I would say, for lack of a better word right now, fancy, like the words express yourself, balance it with something that's very basic. Because if you use two fonts that are very stylized, the eye can't focus on the points you want to make. So obviously, express yourself is written in a more handwritten, more of an artsy, expressive font. Mindfulness coloring book is very simple and very easy to read. If you notice on the other book, I mentioned the one I just showed you before, the fonts were kind of too close in style. And especially when you start using colors that are not dark, depending upon the pattern, it can make it look too busy. The eye doesn't know where to go. Okay. So again, these are just ideas to study. All right, let's move on to the next book. And again, make note of things that stand out for you. Now, this book here, I chose it because it is, again, like the one you just saw. It's not strong, vivid, vibrant colors. It's much more somber. The color palette is much more calm, but it works for this because the title is, well, the subtitle is Relaxing Art Therapy, Floral Adult Coloring Book. And it's about relaxation, mindfulness, all of that. So the color palette that this person chose influences that. If it was something that was bright and very vivid, that would be a different energy. So again, the common thing I want you to notice with this is you've got to know the customer. You've got to know who they are and what kind of a feeling do you want the book to evoke that then captures that person's attention. So someone that would be attracted to this book would be someone, obviously, one that enjoys florals, but they also they like soft pastel, they're not a person that is necessarily stimulated by bright colors. So this can work for them in this context because, again, knowing the customer is what's going to determine all of it, the color palette and everything. The fonts are simple, pretty easy to read, very little styling, and I think it works. Okay, let's move on to the next book. I've got, actually, I may have pulled too many, but anyway, I just wanted to kind of show you a nice variety of books. Okay, and very different than the one I showed you before. Now, this book here is, again, under the same umbrella of stress relief. A lot of coloring books are all under stress relief, mindfulness, and relaxation. So this is something else to point out. If basically you're sort of selling the same benefit, then you got to also look for your point of differentiation. So for this particular person, they're all still around the meditation, mindfulness, all of that, but she's invoked more fantasy, almost like a cartoonish kind of a feel to it, but in a whimsical way, not in a kind of a, I don't say cartoonish, like in a, I'm not sure the word I want to use here, but it's kind of has an animated, that's the word I want to use, an animated feel to it. So again, for someone who the book I showed you before, those color palette may be too somber for you. But if a person is more into vivid colors, they love nature, they love fantasy. I think fantasy, when I see this would appeal to me. The term stress relief coloring book, I personally think that a more creative name could have come up with the title, but I feel like in this context, this person was trying to promote the benefit, not necessarily come up with a clever title for the book. So again, in that context, I would say, I think the title could be reworked to something else. It's not bad. My eye focuses more on the artwork than it does on the title. And then the author's name is written in a more cursive type font. Okay. Let's just keep it moving here. And again, if you're watching live on Facebook, feel free to make a comment, give me a thumbs up, whatever, let me know. And yeah, we'll move right through it. Okay, again, this is back to the fantasy idea. So animation, again, someone vivid, bright colors. There's absolutely no way that you could see this book cover in a sea of other covers and it really not stand out unless all of the books around it were of the same style or design layout. So again, I think, again, what it is, fantasy. And the name of the book is called Forest Fairies. Perfect design for the perfect title. Easy to read. I know exactly what the book is about. It lives up, as far as the cover goes, it lives up to its name. There's nothing about that I would really change. Again, because you really get that feeling of what the book, I mean, you can look at this book and know immediately what it's about. And if you notice, all these books that I've been pulling so far are around relaxation, mindfulness, and stress reduction. But if you notice that they all have different feels in terms of the design. So it can be for a similar outcome for the person buying the book, but the feeling that you designed the book around can be very unique and very different. It doesn't have to all be somber colors or bright and vibrant colors. It's up to the customer that you're actually making the book for. Okay, let's keep it moving here. All right. Now, this book stood out for me immediately because I was very attracted to this cover. First of all, I'm starting to see, I'm starting to see a lot more books on the Amazon market for women of color in particular. And so again, it's all of the genres around self-care, relaxation, reflection, affirmation, all of that. But again, same sort of idea, but it's expressed very uniquely, very differently. Again, my eye is very much drawn to her. She's in a sort of a yoga Zen type pose. The hair framing the face pulls me in. The colors from outward to inward. The eye, it just feels balanced to me. I like the title. The Serenity is the name of the book. I like it has sort of that almost gold leaf type effect to the font, and the font matches the word. Self-care coloring book and reflection journal, to me, that font's a little hard to read, in my opinion. So I would make that font. I mean, I get it. They didn't want the font to be too heavy-handed. But to me personally, you have to keep in mind, people are looking at your book on a screen, on a computer screen, not at a bookstore. So you have to design your cover with that in mind, that they're looking at this on a computer screen, possibly a tablet or a phone. Therefore, they need to be able to see and read what is written. So I would have tested a variety of different fonts for the subtitle down here. But I think that overall, I like the pattern motif behind it. This is an example, too, of in graphic design, this is an example of layering. So you're layering every element from the words on the front to the young lady in the back to that floral sort of motif behind her to that very bold color choice palette behind her. Everything's in layers. You can actually, with the floral pattern behind her, it's a bit of transparency, so I can still see what's behind it through that pattern. That is creating depth. And again, can make the eye, it literally like pulls the eye in almost from a 3D kind of a feel to it, kind of pulls the eye in from the font all the way to the back. So to me, it feels very balanced from her to her skin tone, to the outfit she's wearing, to her hairstyle. It all works. If I was a woman, or if I was buying this book for a woman of color in my life, and I thought this was something I would look at this book and make it a strong contender for a book that I'd potentially buy. Okay, let's keep powering through our list here. I think I pulled about 15, which may be too many titles, but okay. So this one here is just called Mandalas, which is a very popular coloring book style. You see a lot of books on mandalas inside of Amazon, or really all online, period. This is a particular brand of coloring book. By the brand is called Color It. Again, the mandala style is very popular in coloring books. You'll see a lot of mandala style coloring books. Now, to me, there's nothing too, well, I guess because I'm so familiar with mandalas, there's just, again, so much of that out there. But to me, this is more about the way their books, this particular brand of books, the way they're packaged. This particular brand, Color It, uses spiral bound books, which is very different than most coloring books you find, which are perfect bound. They also are made in a tablet format, so they go up and down as opposed to left to right. So the point that you see these spirals at the top is a part of the design. That, again, there's nothing all that extraordinary about mandalas. I think that there's just so many of them out there already. So again, now what I will say, having the bright, vivid color patterns against the black background, it makes the color palette on the mandalas work for sure. And again, they put their logo on the front because that's their brand logo, Color It. They make a point of saying that these are 50 original hand-drawn designs. So that's another selling point. And the thing of it is, overall, I can read all of it. I can read what the title of it is. I can read the positioning of the book. It's an adult coloring book, what volume it is. I can read that it's 50 hand-drawn designs. And if I know the brand, which is in this case, Color It, for your creativity, I can still read that. So for me, the only thing about this would be if I was a person into mandalas, that would call my attention. But again, it's not so much just the cover design, which I'm okay with the cover design. I'm not overly bowled over by it, but I feel that overall, it's what's really selling point is the actual construction of the book itself. Again, the spiral bound tablet style formatting as opposed to books that you see that are more, left to right facing, perfect bound books. All right. All right, let's move to the next one. Now, I'm going to give you a warning now that some of the books I'm going to pull up are going to be a little adult in title, but there's a reason why I've chosen them. So I'm not going to read what you'll see because I want to keep this G. But there's a reason. So I'm just giving you a warning now before we get there. Okay. Again, this is the same mandala style, although they're not ever saying it's a mandala, but this is a mandala style design. The colors are very vibrant, very playful. Again, I can read it. It's not a straight font. It's got more personality and character to it. So you are awesome. Sometimes you forget you are awesome. Inspirational quotes. It's a pretty straightforward. I mean, again, if you like to color this style of design and you like the whole inspirational, it's quotes, it's not just patterns, then that would be a book that would call my attention. Keep in mind too, again, when I pull up another part of this presentation here, I'm going to show you again why these designs are so important in what you pick. Because again, you're going to be looking at it from the perspective of a lot of other books side by side. Okay. I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit because I have to wrap it soon. Let's see. Okay. Let's pull up another. All right. Now, this one here, I pulled it because now there's a lot going on here. But I chose it because, again, because there's so much going on here, and because of the title of the book, I'm going to look, this is going to make me stop to look at what this book is. It doesn't, I mean, it's cluttered for sure. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but it's unique in the respect that it's not, I mean, once you've looked at a half a dozen or a dozen or more mandala books and floral books and Zen books and all of that other style of book, which there's so many of out there, someone that's looking for something more whimsical, something that is more, I'm trying to think of the word I want to use here. Whimsical is the one that comes to mind. I'm gonna pay attention to something like this. If I'm buying something for someone who is looking for a book that's not just pretty flowers to color, I'm gonna pay it. Now, this isn't necessarily so much a coloring book, it's more writing exercises, but I'm looking at this from the place of like characters. I'm looking at it from, again, sort of that cartoonish feel to it, but it doesn't feel like a kid's book per se, although it does have that vibe to it a little bit. My eye is immediately going to go down here to the bottom. Daily writing exercises that are not personal, not introspective, not boring. At the very least, this would make me stop long enough to read more about the book. All right. Because I'd be curious. I mean, actually, the reason why I'm showing you this is because it caught my attention. And that's something I want to emphasize here. You want to pull ideas from things that capture your attention. And then the question to ask yourself is, why did that capture my attention? And would a style like this fit the title of the book, the subject of the book, and the desire of the audience I want to attract? Okay. Well, let's see here. We're moving right through. Okay, so here is one of the books that I pulled that is got one of the special words in it. I'm not going to read it. You can figure out what it's saying. But again, this book here, and I'm going to go back over why I picked some of these different books. So this book here clearly is very adult oriented, R rated because of the language choice. It's very whimsical. It's very in your face. Someone that you would buy this book for would appreciate this. Obviously, you wouldn't get a book like this for someone who doesn't like swear words and someone who likes edgy. I should say edgy is the word. Now, I'm not 100% certain for the choice of the donuts. I'm not quite sure what that's about. But one thing that I can say off the top without questioning is there's no denying this cover. When you see it, you are going to pay attention to it. It's a lot going on. It's extremely busy. And I don't necessarily know if the person that chose this particular cover, I'm not sure actually what the llama, I think that is in the FU word. I'm not quite sure what the llama's about. Um, there's so much happening between the background and the font and the llama and the different font styles. This is one font style. This is another font style. And then my eye at the very bottom goes down to motivational and inspirational square word coloring book for adults. That's a lot to unpack. So again, the person that would be interested in this book, either for themselves or someone that they know, obviously would have to know the person. This, put it like this: someone that would buy this book would be very different than any of the other ones I've shown you so far. So I'm not saying I'm not criticizing it. I want to be very clear about that. It's all about knowing your customer, knowing your audience. And would this make them like run for the hills? Or would they be like, oh yeah, give me that and another one? Okay, so you have to know your customer. I'm looking at Facebook here. I see Marcy Ann here. Good to see you. I see Naya here. Good to see you. Let's see here. So I'm going to read your comments in a minute. I'm going to power through the rest of these because I want to get onto some other points I want to share first, and then I'll go back over some things. Okay, here is another one. This book has been around since for I don't know how long. This book has been on Facebook. I mean, I can't talk. It's been on Amazon for a while. So again, this is another one that they write the word out. So I'm not going to read it. You can read what it says. But again, the audience, the eye, the strong color border around the outer edge draws the eye into the font in the middle. Even though that word is very much like, okay, it's in your face. So again, it's knowing your audience, knowing your customer. If your customer likes this kind of thing, they would pay attention to this. Again, it's multiple layers. There's a pattern going on in the background. Here behind the font choice, it's got this strong, bold color palette that the way they framed it, it pulls the eye into the words. Not that that word needs any more attention brought to it, but I mean, and then on top of that, they actually put another border behind the words so that it stands up even more. This is another example of layering I was talking about, putting the words coloring book on a separate sort of a or design makes it stand up more. Now, where it starts to lose a little bit is here, where you see the words, the very, I'm not going to say it, kind of in a curvature space with the word, I guess, John T. I guess that's the person's name. And then at the bottom, it says square word adult coloring book with stress relieving and relaxation designs. Okay, so again, if that's your customer, they appreciate that. I say, okay, go for it. All right. And let's see, let's pull in. I think I've got two more left. Okay, now here's a very different one. Okay, so this book is called, obviously, Dresses. The design, the pattern that they put together is beautiful. It's very elegant. It clearly, you know what the subject of the book is, but I'm curious if Marcy Ann or Naya is here. What do you immediately notice about this book cover that I would pay attention to? I love the color palette. I love the design, but there's something about this to me that doesn't quite work. If you want to type it in the comments. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and call it out because I'm actually also realizing too that I'm also using this for a podcast episode as well. To me, a fashion coloring book for adults and teens, this is hard to read. Again, go back to what I said a moment ago. The word dresses, which I still think something else could come of that. I'm not necessarily crazy about the title. I think something else more inventive could have come out of that besides just saying dresses. But because you have this font style, now they put an outline border around to make it stand up against the actual pattern of the dress. But problem with it is that again, you're using a sort of a more of a script font with another script font, and then the title of the name of the author is also another script font. The Because you've got such a complex background with so many things going on, it makes it hard to read. When you've got a complex design, the eyes got to have a place to land, to breathe. It's just like when you're speaking. You got to have pauses. You got to have moments where there's a breath taken in order for what you're saying to be comprehended. And to me, there's no space to breathe. I'm looking at a beautiful design, but a complex design with a complex font, with a complex subfont, with a complex name of the author. So again, the color choice of the font along with the style of the font, to me, doesn't work with this cover, with this complex and beautiful design, but it doesn't quite work. So again, and then I'm not quite sure why they put their name off to the right. I would have centered it. That's another thing. And yeah, the color, Marcy says the color, the color doesn't work. So again, I love the pattern. I think it's a good start, but I feel like that there's a lot more. This is another thing I was going to say too. When you're doing designs, don't marry the first thing that you come up with. You want to basically save your background and then put your title on there, and then keep changing one little thing, like change the font style for the title. Definitely change the font style and the color for the subtitle. Look at it. Okay, you've got the name of the author off to the right. Let's look at it off in center. I just realized, again, I'm using this recording for the podcast. So I'm going to announce that now. I forgot to say that earlier. If you're listening to this on the podcast, the link to the replay of this video where I am going through these covers are going to be available in the show notes. So you can click on the show notes and you can look at the video, and because I just realized if you're listening to this and you don't have a video, you don't see what I'm seeing, what I'm showing. So I wanted to make sure I call that out. All right. All right, so let's move on to I think this next to the last one, or maybe the last one. It is the last one. This is good for you to see what works and what doesn't work, because again, it's going to help you with your design. Okay. Now, this one caught my eye. This was a color by numbers cover. Now, I really like this one a lot. It takes advantage of layering. It takes advantage of gradient. So what I mean by gradient is when the tone changes from light to dark, or warm to cool, or cool to warm. This has a lot of those elements in that. The eyes of this lion draw you in immediately. Immediately. The color palette to me, again, works. It's primarily a lot of blues, but it's a good balance between warm and cool colors. And again, even around the lion's mane here, like there's this pink flower, or multi-tone pink flower in the sea of all of this blue. The blue of his fur almost looks like waves on the ocean. Again, I love the textured pattern of the background behind the title. I like it a lot in terms of font choice. Again, I like to look at multiple iterations of a design before I decide on it. And so I would probably it says stress relieving color by numbers for adults coloring. I would say this too. I guess one other suggestion that I would make on this is we all get that people buy coloring books because of for stress reduction purposes. But I don't think it's always necessary to say that all the time. I think people get it now at this point. So be kind of careful about overusing that as a benefit. In this case, I don't necessarily feel like it's necessary to say that it's a stress relieving color by numbers. The one thing I can say kind of consistently is that I feel like that the some of the headlines or some of the titles of the books were a little too basic. I think could have been a little bit more ingenuity put into what they name the books. Okay, so those are basically overall what I wanted to show you. Now, this one here also has patterns of animals, mandalas, landscapes, all of that stuff. All right, now, one thing I wanted to show you before I wrap this up, because I've got a couple more points I want to show you, is that the designs or these pages, let me see if this one has done that, and they may not have done it, but I'm looking to see if they had. This one didn't do it so much, but let me go back to one of the other ones that I know did it really well. This is something to look at when you are laying out your page on a platform like Amazon, for an example. Okay. This is actually a good one. I'm glad I pulled this one. This was a good example. Okay, so notice when you're doing your research, not just the cover title, but how they wrote about it. All righty. So there's a lot of copy here to read, but this person wanted to make sure you understood the benefits of this book. Notice that she picked emojis to sort of give the eye that she's changing because there's a lot of text here. But the emoji kind of like lets me know, okay, this is point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5. Okay. Moving further down the page, there should be, yes, this is what I wanted to show you. There are graphics here that actually help the potential customer learn more about the book. So this content section here is called A+ content. This is something that Amazon will let you do once your book has been approved and it's gone live. You can go back in and add these additional graphics to your listing in order to be able to illustrate more of the book, what's inside the book. And it, to me, it elevates it so that the person, because again, you have to keep in mind, you're looking at your book with everyone else on, people looking at your book with everyone else's book on the platform. So if there's nothing about your listing that elevates it, chances are that they may keep scrolling. Okay, so you want to be able to take advantage of this resource that Amazon gives you. It's called A+ content. And they've added several graphics. These are testimonial graphics. Okay. So there's, images of people holding the book. And then she's done some what I call stylized images to show what the book looks like. All right. So this is, and it clearly is, I think there's what do you call it? Not greeting cards, like a card deck that's also based on this book. But see, there's even more down here. Look at the way she's showing the hand, illustrating the inside of the book, hands holding the book. All of this is content that Amazon will let you put up on the platform. Now, in my Coloring Book Creator Society Mentor Program, I have a whole tutorial section in that program about how to create A+ content and how to, even if your book's been published, you can go back and add this content to your listing. And a lot of people don't take advantage of this. The people that I find that sell the most books take advantage of this. I actually, as I'm sitting here talking about this right now, I think I'm going to do a part 2 to this next on the next session, because there's some more depth of this I want to show you. And because I'm going to have to wrap this call in a few minutes, but I wanted to just kind of go over this with you. There's a video here. Turn the music down. But so you're seeing the pay. So you see how this person is really taking advantage of all of the resources that are available to them. She's showing you a time-lapsed color illustration. She's slowly flipping through the pages of the book. So you really feel that you are a part of this experience. She's made an experience here, not just a book. So as I'm looking at this right now, I am going to do a part 2 to this as well, because I feel like there's a lot of points that I want to cover with you on this, all of you on this. So again, this is a really good example of a way to really, really maximize your book sales. And this person sells a lot of books. That I know for a fact. She sells a lot of books because she's really taken it to another level. All righty. And she's got a whole product line of other things, calendars and so on and so forth. All righty. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop back over to the last points that I wanted to make, where I was talking about, I just mentioned a moment ago, take advantage of A+ content. A+ content is all those additional graphics and videos that you just saw in the last listing that you can add to your listing after your book is published in order to elevate the experience that someone looking at your listing on Amazon will have of your book. Okay? You also want to, as you're doing your research, you want to make note of what book covers capture your attention. That's really going to be important. And then going on to the third point here is starting a swipe file. A swipe file is a term used in the copywriting world where if you see something that could inspire what you want to create, you can quote unquote take a picture of it. You don't copy somebody verbatim, but you use it as an inspirational source. So when you find covers that you like, if you're looking at Amazon on your phone, however, I don't know what brand phone you have, but take a screenshot of your phone. Or if it's on the desktop of your computer, take a screenshot of the desktop on your computer, because that you can then go back and reference those designs as you're planning out your own cover. And if you decide to hire a designer to do the cover for you, you can then give them those covers to reference for what you want them to put together for you. All right. So imagine having maybe 5 or 10 images that you pull from, and then you make note. What did you like about this? What did you like about that one? Maybe you combine different elements for your own cover. So start a swipe file. The last thing I was going to say, and this is the really most important part, is you've got to get crystal clear on your customer. If you look at the variety of books that I showed you, these are all clearly for very different customers. Someone that's going to buy that book with the cover of the dresses is going to be very different than the one that's going to buy the book with the square words on the front. All righty. So you've got to know your customer. And again, this is something that I dive into in great depth inside the coloring book idea prep kit. Validate your book idea before you make it. Again, I'll put the link to that in the comments here under the video, but that's a free mini course that you can get, because that's what's going to also help you figure out and get clear about your customer. It's going to help you determine the title. It's going to help you determine the color palette. It's going to help you determine what goes inside the book to begin with. It's going to help you determine how you list the book, all of it. So you've really got to understand who you're doing this book for to know what they'll be interested in. And again, as I'm clear, I'm going to do a part 2 to this next Tuesday, because on that one, I'm going to talk about how you can use the designing of your cover. The process of the designing of your cover is as a part of your marketing for future books that you put out. So I'll save that for the part 2 of this conversation, and I'll go into that, because there's a way for you to be able to do this not in a vacuum, to do this not in a bubble. The more that you can enlist the input of the ultimate buyer for your book as you're building the book, the more that they will be more attracted to what you're creating, so that when the book comes out, the chances increase that they would want to buy it because they've had input throughout your process. So I'm going to go into that more on the next call or the next session. So again, you got to know your customer. You got to look at what appeals, and you've got to sort that out before you just start putting something together and throw it up on the platform and then assume because it's your book that it's going to stand out. Because again, your book is standing up against everything else on the platform. I mean, everything. And if there's nothing that grabs that person's attention enough that they will, they may have come on Amazon to look for socks or whatever the case may be. And while they're there, they shop for themselves and they go look at books. Well, if what they're finding isn't making them stop and pay attention, it isn't holding their attention, they won't know it exists. So that's why we have to take advantage of our opportunity to be able to really get our book to stand out, to call out that person and go, hey, pay attention to me. I may be something that you really want to add to the cart. All righty. But that starts with you knowing who your customer is. All righty. All right. So with that said, again, a lot of these things I deep dive on in great depth inside of my Coloring Book Creator course. So if you're interested in learning more about that program, also drop a hand emoji or whatever in the comments, and I'll get in touch with you about that. Because again, we break down this even in more depth. Also, again, the A+ content, which I mentioned up here, this was the top of this. If you're not taking advantage of that, you're really missing out on an opportunity to really turn up your sales. So it's something that Amazon doesn't charge you extra for, but a lot of people don't take advantage of it. So that's just one of the things I go over inside of the Coloring Book Creator course. All righty. So I'm going to look and see if there's any comments here, because I'm going to have to hop off. I have another call in a few minutes. But let's see. So Marcianne says, what turns me off immediately is when there's no image from the inside, not even a collage on the back cover. Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't even talk about the back cover. I just focused on the front cover. So this is definitely worthy of a part two of this conversation. So as I said, I will pick this back up again for next Tuesday's session, and we'll look at back covers. And we'll also talk a little bit more about how to use the design of your book, the process of the design of your book as a part of your launch of your book. There's a way to do that so that you're attracting the attention of your ideal person as you're creating the book. So I'm going to talk about that more in depth. All righty. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up at this point, because like I said, I have to hop over to another call in about 5 minutes. But let me know in the comments what you thought about what I shared today. Let me know any feedback that you have. And again, if you would like a PDF copy of this document here, let me know. Also, let me know in the chat, and I will export this out as a PDF document, and I will give you a copy of this for you to have for your own reference. And I may add some more to it for part two, but I don't think I will. I think this is going to be kind of a standalone. These are all the links to all the different books in Amazon that I just pulled up. So if you want to click on them and go take a look at them again, you're welcome to do that. And I think this will be a good starting point for you. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I'll see you next week. Take care.